Now, I know I'm conscious that we're a few minutes over time, but I just wanted to make a kind of try to draw some of the projects together with an observation, I guess, and it's really around the relationship between simulation versus real-time feedback. And of course, it's not an oppositional thing necessarily, but I mean, Wilson talked about the role of simulation, of material simulation, which is an incredibly critical thing in this type of deposition additive manufacturing. And I guess it's quite possible to make something which is mass standardized or repeated through prototyping. One can develop a series of prototypes to then refine something to then be able to make it repeated. But if we're truly moving into an age of mass customization, which of course additive manufacturing has always sort of made the claim to be able to do, simulation of material is such a critical part of this, because it's one thing to be able to model something that you can have various levels of confidence about whether it can be printed, but it's actually because every piece of geometry will print differently, and having the capacity to simulate that really precisely is probably the tool that's going to allow us to really kind of engage with the promise of 3D printing and mass customization. But the other way of looking at it is really what Ines is talking about. This idea that if you took your project to an extreme, this extreme idea of adaptability and real-time feedback, when you do that, you don't need to have any knowledge of material. You don't need to have any knowledge of what may happen if you have sufficiently rapid feedback to what is actually happening. And so I think these are kind of like two radically different ways of thinking about how do you control unpredictability in additive manufacturing. And so, Ines, I have so many kind of detailed questions I'd love to ask you at some point about what you're doing. But I think that, I think this sort of difference between these two ways of working, or how they might be hybridized, or how those might start to play off each other, I think is a really fascinating topic in terms of the way design relates to the promise of additive manufacturing. So I don't know. Do we have time for a few to expand this conversation, or do we need to move on?
I think we should move on at a certain point, but I like your comment. This is predicting the uncontrolled. That's something which really makes a difference. That's a clear change I see when I evaluate the beam sessions which we had. This one is you see a lot more other influences than just a different way of manufacturing a certain material. I fully buy that one. And the question I would love to have asked Professor Jan, maybe I can ask you: did it ever fail? Did one of these bridges ever collapsed? That would be actually an interesting one to see, because then, if not, there's still space to become even more innovative if you want. Do you have an idea about that? Do you know that, Roland?
Not when I was there, but perhaps. I don't know.
Well, I hope so. Otherwise,
they should, in a way, because I mean, I think that's what these demonstrated projects are for. They push something to the extreme where it does fail.
Yeah. Okay, allow me to cut here to give each of us the chance to have a break. We planned the break of an hour. Let's say we start again on time at 2 o'clock European time.